Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. The Vesta 300AG is interesting from the perspective of if you're looking for a system, you might want to buy one. But if you're just looking for a general set of guidelines for a value-based gaming system, do stay tuned because this is one of the most balanced gaming systems that we've seen in a while at a price point that is incredibly attractive. All this can be yours for only $699.99. Let's start with the outside of the system. It is covered with a Fractal Design Core 1000 case. This is an extremely efficiently laid out case, but you don't see some of the magic Swedish design that went into it until you open it up. On the outside, it looks pretty plain, but I'm going to show it to you guys anyway. So on the left side panel, you find a 120mm fan mount. This can provide extra airflow for your graphics card if you choose to install a fan there, but this system is quite quiet in the configuration that it's in, so the NCIX team wanted to keep it that way. On the front, you find a full mesh cover with a dust filter. So two 5¼ bays with a Fractal Design logo at the top, and then the entire rest is intake for the case. Without bringing in dust, that means that you're going to have a longer lifespan for the components that are inside. On the right side panel, we find the I/O as well as the power button. So there's power, two USB 2.0 ports, headphone and microphone jacks, a reset switch, a power LED, and a hard drive LED. Other than that, the rest of the right side panel is completely clean. I/O is provided by the Gigabyte motherboard inside, so what we're going to find is 4 USB 2.0 ports, 2 USB 3.0 ports, a PS2 keyboard mouse combo port, DVI, HDMI, and VGA, and 5.1 audio out. Where things start to look a little bit more advanced is down here at the bottom with that 7790 capable of driving up to 2 DVI and a single DisplayPort display all at the same time. On the inside is where the magic happens, because when you're trying to configure a $700 system, let's face it guys, there's CPUs that cost $700, graphics cards that cost $700, heck, there's almost anything that you can even spend $700 on a case. But if you have that as your entire budget, you have to make sure all of the components are extremely well balanced so that you're not blowing too much money on something that's so much better than everything else in the system that the actual potential there gets wasted. All right, so it starts with the FX 6300 6-core processor. It's a 3.5 gigahertz processor, which makes it plenty fast for gaming. It's 6-core, which means that it's going to be plenty fast for multi-threaded gaming. I mean, even web browsing is becoming multi-threaded now, which is like thumbs up, we're moving in the right direction. However, I wouldn't expect to do any extreme overclocking on the board that we're using here. So this is a 760G board. So no, you're not going to be running any crazy crossfire configurations or doing like, liquid nitrogen overclocking on it, but it won't affect the stock performance of the system because the motherboard really doesn't impact that at all. We've got 8 gigs of Kingston HyperX memory, so that's 1600 megahertz memory, which really doesn't cost that much more than $1333 and does benefit the performance, particularly on AMD platforms. But the centerpiece here is really the Radeon 7790. So this is a gigabyte overclocked SKU. It's running 1075 megahertz, so that's more than 1 gigahertz, which the stock cards are running at 1 gigahertz. It also has an aftermarket cooler with a very large fan that's going to keep it cool, whether it's running at idle or whether it's running under an extreme load, and it's very, very quiet. Here, I'm going to lean myself right in here. Here's my microphone. And you guys can hear, unless I sort of accidentally wang on the case, that it is not very loud at all. Now for storage, you've got a couple of options. The one that I have here has a 60 gig ADATA SSD, but if you want, for exactly the same price, you can configure it with a 1 terabyte drive that is a hard drive. Now this is where I was talking about the magic of the layout inside this case a little bit. Check this out. The drives are mounted here. So you have vibrational anti-reduction rubber mounts here, or you can mount SSDs, so you can do 2 hard drives or 2 SSDs, 3 SSDs rather, directly on this plate right here, and you can easily pull the whole thing out with thumb screws in order to install them there. It makes the inside very efficient from an airflow perspective, because check this out, when you look from the back, that entire front intake area there, which has a 120mm fan in it, is very open and can drive fresh air towards the graphics card and CPU and everything else inside here. For the power supply, it's using an Antec Basic Series 450 watt, which is more than capable of a decent graphics card and decent CPU like what you're seeing here. So what do you get with the Vesta 300 AG? You get a very compelling value. I mean, I know I've said that a lot, but in addition to the hardware, there's a copy of Far Cry 3 as well as a copy of Stalker Call of Pripyat, so that's $70 worth of free games bundled in. You also get support for AMD's ecosystem because you're using an AMD board with an AMD CPU and an AMD GPU. So that means Catalyst Control Center with GPU overclocking is supported, and because it's using a brand name power supply, an Antec power supply, you can not worry about pushing the GPU a little bit. It's not just going to blow up or anything like that. And even though it has a 760G board, it does have one of the beefier power delivery systems out of these value motherboards, this particular Gigabyte board here. So you're going to be able to use AMD's overdrive software in order to push it up a little bit. It comes with a stock cooler, which, although it's better than Intel stock coolers, is not the best cooling solution ever. So I wouldn't go crazy, like I said before, but you can squeeze as much performance as you can out of the budget that you have. Another piece of AMD software that is supported is their RAM disk software, although I would recommend adding probably another 8 gigs of RAM if you want to take advantage of that. It is free. You can download it for your system. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you for checking out this NCIXPC episode on the Vesta 300 AG. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this from your favorite detailer, NCIX.com.